Do. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'd like to introduce both Andrew Jara and our own Deb Rojas, who will walk us through coping in the new year. They'll share with us some ideas about positive changes for 2021, along with some coping skills, mindfulness and self-care techniques, and some social resources and support systems. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce both Andrew and Deb and thank them for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Gail.
Yes,
It was a
thank
wonderful-
you.
Welcome.
So as Gail said, hello, we are from Daemion Counseling.
There you go. Yes, we are from Daemion Counseling, and Daemion is right around the corner from St. Monica, right across the street from the middle school. We are entirely virtual right now, which makes us very, very accessible if you have a computer or a phone, for that matter. And there are some services that we just wanted to make sure that you knew right off the bat that Daemion offers. And those are support groups. We have 3, one for parents of adult children with mental health or substance abuse challenges, one for aging well, and another for healing the helping professional. We also offer individual and couples counseling, drug and alcohol evaluation, anger management programs, and grief and loss counseling. And our website is right here. Phone number is available, and you guys know where to find me. So if you needed any information on that, I would be happy to pass it on as well. Daemion has been in the community for 50 years now and is part of what has provided affordable counseling on the main line for a very long time. And it's a privilege to do my internship at such a wonderful counseling facility.
I completely agree. I've been able to learn a lot and connect with this community and contribute what skills I've been working on for the past few years, which is very exciting.
Yes.
And I'm very happy that I'm here today to be able to talk with you guys about coping in the new year, because 2020 was a bit of a trip, wasn't it?
Indeed.
So without further ado, let's talk about the new year. Oh, wait.
We should also introduce Fran real quick.
Oh, yes. We have Fran here. Fran is my supervisor. She's been at Daemion Counseling for how many years have you been at Daemion Counseling? 20?
Quite
a long time.
Yeah,
a long time. And she's helped a great deal, and I'm very appreciative for all her help. So I'm glad to have her here for her support. She's one of the counselors at Daemion. We have quite a good group working with us. So if you would ever want to or need to reach out for help, there are plenty of people there that are there to provide listening and support. So what we have next is a quote: "Out of difficulties grow miracles." And I like to think about crises. And one of the things that I've been thinking about crises is that crises happens, struggles happen, but these crises can also be a time of opportunity. We can utilize a crisis as a time of opportunity to pursue personal, spiritual growth, and to look back on ourselves and see how we can make positive changes in our lives. And going into the new year.
So one of the things that we wanted to just kind of bring to attention is this is the perfect time to do this. We're at the beginning of a new year. And I'm just curious. I can't see a whole lot of faces, but I'm guessing that with the transition from 2020 to 2021, that there was some soul searching, some looking at things that worked well for last year that we wanted to keep in our lives, and also some things that didn't work well and that we're looking to change. And one of the things that I came across, and one of the reasons that I'm always hesitant to do many New Year's resolutions, is that we start them and they seem like grand goals, but then often by day 10, they're part of history. They're not an integrated part of a healthy lifestyle, which is really the goal of starting New Year's resolutions. So these particular pieces of information are just helpful because, you know, we start something and often we're trying to, like, we have a laundry list of things that we want to change. And one of the reasons that habits don't stick is that we're trying to change too many things at once. And change is a process and takes time. It takes time to instill those values. And so it's like starting with a habit that's too big of a chunk is really, it's not going to succeed. So if we're seeking a result, like I want to lose X amount of pounds, as opposed to I want to have a healthier lifestyle, we'll find that there's more success in seeking a change in habit, a change in lifestyle, rather than a change in something result. And that goes along with changing your environment. So we can't expect to have a substantial change. We're not really changing our habitat, our lifestyle, our schedules, our mindsets, all of those things that make up who we are and what we are becoming. And then I love that small changes, little by little, really make for great changes in the end. So don't assume that your small changes don't add up, because they do. And so part of how we're coping is addressing some of those small changes and how they can help to enhance all of our lives in 2021. So what are some positive changes that you would like to make this year? And if you want to go ahead and take off your mute button, you can go ahead and just give me a word or two of things that you would like to see change in your life. There's no wrong answer here.
Certainly.
You could type it in the chat bar too, if that's more comfortable.
You know, I always think about what you were talking about before with small changes and big changes, because, you know, when I think of New Year's resolutions, I always have high expectations of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to set my goals very high, and making them smaller and more realistic is something that I'm trying to work on in this new year, especially since we're so limited in the things that we can do.
Absolutely.
So that's something that I've been thinking about a lot as we move in. I did see something in the chat.
Yes, Meg has said she's hoping to find more gratitude every day.
Practicing gratitude. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Roberta, eliminate clutter. Now that's something you could do a really small step, little bit at a time. Nancy, being more aware and living in the present, living in the moment. Absolutely.
The here and now.
The here and now.
As we like to say as counselors.
Mm-hmm. In the present, not in yesterday or tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, those are some good ones.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So when we talk about coping and what coping is, when we look at the stressors that happen in our life, because when I think about New Year's resolutions a bit, I think about the pressure that we put on ourselves. You know, we come into the new year with a fresh perspective, a fresh attitude that we want to tackle things in the new year. We want to address things in the new year. And we might be putting some pressure on ourselves to address a lot of different things, or a lot of, like I said, lofty goals that are way away and take many, many steps to get there. And it's a process of getting to those things. And it's a process of dealing with adversity, stress, struggles. You know, we have a picture of a rocky road here, and I love the symbology with that. Deb actually came up with that, and I think it's a perfect picture, a perfect image to put here, in that you're taking this rocky road towards the goals that you're trying to get to in the new year. And part of navigating that road is having skills and having abilities and strengths and recognizing what they are and how to utilize them. So coping is the ability to deal with the stress that we get, both internal and external, and the demands that we place on ourselves. And there's many, many different kinds of coping. And two of the bigger categories of coping tend to focus on what the problem is and how to address that problem with a solution. So problem focused is very much connected to what's the solution to how we can help the problem. It's solution focused. And then emotion is what are the feelings that are being created or that are behind the problem. So things like the anxiety that we may feel, the stress that comes up in our jobs or in school or in social situations. I'm sure that all of us are familiar with things like that. Those are the things that we can deal with. How do we cope with those emotional parts? And then, of course, coping mechanisms can be healthy and work well, or they can be unhealthy, and they might not work as well as the healthy ones, but it's sometimes hard to navigate which one is which. And that's sort of what I want to bring up here. So I've separated it so that on this side, it's healthy, and then where it says under unhealthy, it's unhealthy. But to go through some of the healthy strategies, I really, really want to emphasize the importance of joy. I think we really tend to underestimate joy and fun and laughter and engaging in activities that make us laugh, watching the funny, our favorite funny movie, whatever it may be, or playing a game, or whatever you can enjoy, music, dancing, cooking. I know a lot of people, I've heard with this pandemic, so many people have told me, I've really gotten back into cooking, I've gotten back into baking, and I've been doing all these things, and I love it. And that's something that has been connecting with people. So finding things that just bring some lightness into your life is so important. And
I
it's
forgot
so
one,
important.
Andrew.
What?
This.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking about that too when we were having our technical difficulties and how we all had to come together as a team here and figure things out. This situation, all of us coming together, it's a social situation. We're all sharing it together. I'm hoping to make it some fun or have some fun. I'm planning to have some fun during this time. But, social situation, sharing in situations that we enjoy, experiences that we enjoy, is a great way to remind us of our connections, that we're all human. There's an innate humanness to all of us. And in sharing those moments, like we're sharing right now, all together in a Zoom meeting, even though we're distanced, physically, we're still here in the moment. And in that moment, we're not alone. And that's something that's really, really important to recognize, that we're not alone when things are stressful and in times of crisis. We're all dealing with things that are stressful in that. And so we can look to our human connection and say, hey, I'm just one of many, and we're all doing the best we can. Some other things, exercise. I put some certain ones on here, yoga and aerobic exercise. Yoga can make you feel connected to the body. So there's some great yoga YouTube videos and stuff that I've been looking at over the pandemic. I have no flexibility whatsoever. So it's an interesting thing to watch me. It's not something I would put online. Thank goodness I don't have to, but I'm not going to any online yoga classes, but I can at least do it with a nice video. So that's really good. Meditation, there's many different forms of meditation. Self-guided meditation that focuses on positive thoughts, meditation that focuses on relaxing the body, relaxing the mind. There are apps of meditation. I've seen different, again, YouTube videos online of meditation. And there's a whole bunch of different things. I mean, the internet for meditation is a great resource for me, especially right now with everything going on. And muscle relaxation techniques, I always like to mention these because they help. I've used them myself and they help, especially when I can't fall asleep. And it's essentially tensing different areas of your body, the muscles in your body, and for a certain amount of time, and then releasing that tension. So your hands can work through your whole body, and your shoulders and your back, your stomach, your abdominal, legs, thighs, feet, etc., and going through the whole body. And it can help bring, the tension and the release can give you a feeling of a relaxation. Spiritual practices and prayer is also, very important. Being able to express our spiritual need, or being able to address our spiritual needs and express ourselves in a spiritual way, being able to connect in a spiritual way is important. Spiritual can also be connection. It can be communal. It can connect us to the community. Again, that's one of those things that we can do with other people, connecting in prayer groups, connecting at church services. Things like that can be important. I think Deb had mentioned that there are some prayer groups at St. Monica's that happen.
There are some groups that meet to pray the rosary on a regular basis. They stay after Mass on occasion, or on Monday evenings as well. And there are also there are many Zoom groups where people will actually log in live to pray the rosary together. And that's been something that has grown exponentially over the course of the pandemic, because people do want connection. And it's prayer is powerful, and it's even more powerful when we realize that we're praying with others. We're not just by ourselves. Like you were saying earlier, Andrew, that knowing that we're not alone in and
Absolutely.
of itself is incredibly encouraging.
Absolutely. It's easy to feel isolated when we're not with other people,
Physically present, right?
Yes. So having that reminder, and especially with the spiritual connection attached, can be very powerful. I think it can be very powerful. And again, spirituality, I think it can also connect with nature. I think experiencing nature can be very relaxing, being able to go for a walk, take in some sunlight. It's a little difficult right now because it's dark out. And it's also the winter, we're moving into February, so we're moving away from December and those things. But it's still
getting longer.
Yeah, days are getting a little longer, but it's still cold. I'll tell you that. It can still be cold. So we might be a bit limited. One of the things that I was talking about with Deb and that I had just recently learned about is something called a happy light, which it simulates sunlight. And you can use it for, I think, somewhere between 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day to a half hour or an hour, and it simulates sunlight and can give you the same experience if you're lacking sunlight because of the change in seasons or because it's nighttime, if you don't have access to it. So, and I know, Deb, you said that you've used it, right?
My family has used the kids call it a happy lamp. We've been using it for a few years throughout the winter. And when I pulled it out this year, right at about the beginning of January, when the days were really dark, they were so happy to see it again. And it's just, it's very, very bright. It does mimic sunlight. But there's just something that's so energizing about it that if your house doesn't have a lot of windows where you're getting direct sunlight or able to sit in direct sunlight, if you're not able to get outside, it's not an expensive lamp, and it really is a very, very healthy option to fight seasonal depression.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I missed it. Through all the times that I've been thinking and looking at seasonal affective disorder, this happy light existed the whole time. It's a great resource. I think that's wonderful.
That and vitamin D3.
Yeah, that's yes, very true. And then when we look at unhealthy strategies, we're always trying to find ways to cope and ways to deal with the stress in our lives. And sometimes we go to whatever's available to us. And unfortunately, sometimes that isn't a healthy strategy, but it's the one that we can come up with in the time. And stress can be overwhelming. And so we feel we have to reach for whatever's there. So one of the things that we could reach to is a substance, alcohol, smoking, other types of drugs, prescription drugs, abusing drugs, those types of things. Being mindful of how we consume substances, mindful alcohol consumption is definitely important right now. It's definitely something that's gone up with the pandemic. So being mindful of when we're consuming alcohol, how much alcohol we're consuming, are we consuming it for a reason? Is there an emotional reason? Those are things that you might want to tune into and think about, because they might not be the healthiest strategies to cope, and you might want to try and see if you can replace it with one of the healthy strategies. Another one is eating. It's always important to eat, have a healthy eating habit, but there can be a tendency to overeat or to undereat. Sometimes people get so stressed that they can't eat, or sometimes people get so stressed that they binge or try to eat a lot of food. There's also a tendency that if we come up against a problem, to try, if it intimidates us, we try to push ourselves through. The faster I can get this thing done, faster it's over. I don't have to think about it anymore. I don't have to deal with it anymore. And we can push ourselves too hard and push ourselves even further into stress. When we push ourselves like that and we're not taking the time to take care of ourselves, it can lead to more stress.
Mhm.
So, and one of the examples that I'm thinking of is sleep and rest. Maybe there's a project at work, or there's a project at school or something like that, something you want to get done right away. So you keep going and going, and then you don't give yourself enough time to rest. And then you're tired for the next day, and then you maybe have the same anxiety and things like that. Negative self-talk, and then going down the rabbit hole is sort of what I call it, when it's difficult to bring ourselves out of negative thinking when we're in a stressful situation, when we're feeling stressed. So it tends to exacerbate, and we can't break ourselves out of a negative mindset. And keeping the negative talk going, keeping spiraling down into a rabbit hole with sort of, it's not going to get any better, or it's too hard, things like this can be a hard mindset to break out of. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily feel natural to switch into a positive mindset when we're so stressed. But it can be an incredibly important tool to recognize, I'm in a negative mindset. How can I shift? How can I pivot into something positive? Can I adjust my thinking here? Can I look at an alternative? That can be a great healthy strategy to oppose the negative self-talk. And another point that's important here with negative self-talk is the criticizing ourselves, being the self-critic that sort of lives in our head, addressing that critic. Do we need to believe all the things that we tell about ourselves that are negative? Can we be kind to ourselves? Can we be gentle with ourselves? Yelling and arguing with others is how stress can result in our relationships. Relationships can be a source of support, but they can also be a source of stress.
Mhm.
And things like putting up healthy boundaries can be an incredibly important way to manage the stress that happens in our relationships. And then with denying and suppressing feelings and stress, when you look at things and you think, you ignore it. You don't want to deal with it. I'm going to ignore the problem. Does the problem go away? Does the stress go away? Is that a long-term solution? It may not be a strategy that works for you because it's still there and it's not being addressed. So sometimes direct action is something that's needed. So this is what I like to call, and I didn't create it, so I'm not taking credit or anything like that, but this is called the Wheel of Coping. I'd sing the Wheel of Fortune song, but I can't sing, so I'm not going to do that. What this is that it breaks down coping strategies into 4 sections, and those sections are actions, options, available options, social resources, and personal abilities. And with personal, I'm interested to hear from these resources. I hope that you can see them. If there's any that you recognize, anything maybe that you've used yourself, or anything that you'd be interested in using. There's a whole bunch of different things, under problem solving, strategizing, planning, reading, observing, actions, cognitive restructuring. That's kind of that positive change in mindset I'm talking about. Spiritual support, seeking comfort, seeking information, emotional regulation, behavior regulation. So I'm wondering if you see you using any type of these skills, and something like that. And then if you want to put something in the chat or say something,
Yeah, absolutely.
that would be great. But I'm just interested to see. And I don't know if you can really read these. I tried to make it as big as possible, but PowerPoint is limiting.
I have really good eyes and I can read them, but I have to work to read it.
Okay. Well, I did read a few.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go through them all because there is a lot. But the breakdown into social actions, options and abilities I really liked. And that's sort of what I wanted to go over with it, where, you know, the actions are direct, options are looking at all the things and choices that we have in a stressful situation. Social is leaning on the social supports we have. And then personal abilities is about strengths, our strengths, recognizing what our strengths are, which is really important.
The thing I love about that, Andrew, is that it really does bring out the personal responsibility aspect. Like, these are all things that we can engage
Right.
to cope in a healthy way. And there are many resources available. Ann Bondi is asking, what is bargaining? It was on the scales, one of the negotiation.
So bargaining is, it's looking at, you know, this is a large group of things. So, and it's important to go back to that healthy versus unhealthy. Bargaining can be, can I do halfway this problem? Can I do some of this problem? Can I get out of it? Can I be accommodated? Well, accommodation is another part, but it's negotiation, basically. How can I negotiate a way that I can deal with this problem? You know, so if it's a problem at work, or if it's a problem in social, you know, can I do some of it? Can I not do some of it? It's looking at whether or not you can try and trade off and make a bargain so that maybe the stress won't be as much. That might not be a healthy coping strategy in every situation. In some situations, it might be the only strategy available. In other situations, it might be a beneficial strategy, but I can certainly think of sometimes when that wouldn't be an unhelpful coping strategy. So this is a diverse range of strategies. Some of them can be more beneficial than others, depending on the strategy, depending on the situation.
On the circumstances, right?
Exactly.
I can imagine that bargaining is something that a lot of us did at Christmas with family.
Yes.
Trying to figure out,
Good point.
You know, negotiate how to celebrate the holidays, and negotiate how to accommodate each other. You know, that would go, accommodating would go along there too.
I'm thinking about, you know, you brought up the holidays. I'm thinking about, you know, when I was able to see my family in person, I'm thinking about, I have a lot of little cousins, and not all little cousins like to be cooperative, and their parents might do some bargaining in, do I give him the toy or the candy so he's going to get a little bit better, or she's going to calm down, or do I not do that because it's already 9 o'clock at night and I really don't want to give this kid sugar, so she's going to be up. So what do I do? So you bargain in that situation of how to deal with the stress. That's the coping mechanism that you might be relying on. And it might be the only one available to you, like I said. So in certain situations, we use what we can. And that's, coping strategies. Part of that is that it takes time to build. So we use what we can because we don't necessarily have right away automatically the right strategy. It's a practice. It takes time. It takes energy. It's like a muscle. You know, you go to the gym, we exercise certain areas of our body to get stronger arms, stronger legs, core, whatever. And exercising our coping strategies is the same thing we do when we practice them, when we practice mindfulness, self-care, etc. They take time to get stronger. And again, going back to that resolution part, little steps, little goals. Every little goal is a step towards progress. Active coping and avoidance coping strategy, again, talking about helpful and unhelpful, it's situational. Avoidance can sound like it may be completely bad. It's an unhealthy way to deal. But in some moments, in certain circumstances, especially in an immediate stressful situation, finding some distance from a situation can be beneficial. It can help you reset. It can help you calm. You know, if you're in a panic situation or an anxiety attack situation, it can draw you out of that and give you the ability to maybe come up with a different strategy. So sometimes getting distance is helpful. Active coping, you know, is helpful when you need to deal with the problem right away. It's directly dealing with the problem to find a way to alleviate that problem. I also wanted to point out the difference between a defense mechanism, which is something common, and coping, which is a skill, an active skill. Defense mechanisms are automatic. They're usually unconscious. They just come to us. You know, there are many different types of defense mechanisms, but it's not something that's usually something we actively choose. An active choice, something we have control over, is the coping skill. So defense mechanisms and relying defense mechanisms, they will come up, but the coping skill gives us more control in our ability to manage stress. And again, this goes back to the question of what strategies do you already use to deal with stress, adversity? You can build off those ideas, those strengths, focusing on solutions, immediate solutions. How can I deal with the stress right in front of me versus for longer term solutions? Is there something behind the stress? Maybe that's where you do that emotional work, the root cause of the stress. So we might see reoccurring patterns in our life, the same stress coming up again and again, and looking for the root cause behind that can be finding solutions for that can be important. Changing the perspective, are we recognizing the positive things that happen? Tend to always be in the negative when we're in stress, and looking for good things that happen in our days, especially hard days. When you have a bad day, trying to find the positive in a bad day and recognize the positive can be an important practice of coping. Spiritual growth, social supports and relationships, again, those can be connected. All of these things can be practiced together. It's not an and or situation. It's definitely all together. Right. Choosing what works for you. This is from Carl Rogers, who I love. I love Carl Rogers. I love person-focused therapy is what he's known for. And I like this quote because it's very simple, that the good life is a process. It's not a state of being. It's something that we keep working towards. There's always something we can move towards. There's always a goal. And every small step matters. Every small step of progress matters and should be celebrated. Big goals, long, far away can be very hard, but every small step is a great thing on that rocky path. So mindfulness and self-care is so important. I mean, pretty much everything I'm talking about is self-care, and self-care is just such a thing that I want to emphasize. I have it at the bottom, but I'm going to say it right now. Making self-care a priority in your life is incredibly important. When I think about resolutions, New Year's resolutions, a lot of them are focused on putting pressure on ourselves. I want to lose the weight to get into an outfit, or I want to meet this ambition or do this thing, and it can put a lot of pressure. I think it can be a great resolution to say, my resolution is to take care of myself better this year, to practice self-care, to make it a priority, to make me a priority, and address my needs. It's so important. And part of that is practicing mindfulness. And so I like to think of mindfulness. Mindfulness is connected to the body and it's connected to the spirit. I know that that's the program that's happening right now, Mind, Body, Spirit, that St. Monica is building. And I couldn't have put it better myself. All these things are connected. So I'm sure as you build on into these other presentations, you're going to be learning things, and that's great. But taking notice of the physical and how it affects the mental is important. Where do we hold stress in our bodies? Sometimes we get headaches, sometimes stomach aches or indigestion, sometimes muscle aches, your neck hurts, your back hurts, numbness, tingling sensation, pronounced heartbeat. I feel my heartbeat in my chest, a palpitation, breathing, I catch my breath. I feel like I can't breathe, or breathing a lot heavier, hyperventilating. Noticing when those things happen, helps us recognize stress in our bodies, the symptoms of stress in our bodies when they come up. And then it's great to be in a place of physical strength when we're trying to deal with stress. So taking care of our bodies is so important. Eating healthy, getting enough sleep, regular exercise, taking breaks, going to the doctor regularly, checkups. It's all important, keeping our body, taking care of our body is self-care. Taking care of our body is self-care. And that's something that should be practiced. And Deb has an activity that she would like to share.
I do. But
a short little activity.
Before we go into that, I did want to tell you, Andrew, I have an accelerated heart rate right now.
Well, maybe your activity will help.
Andrew and I we've enjoyed putting together this presentation and thinking about self-care, what it looks like, what it doesn't look like. And in our conversation today, we were talking about anxiety and depression and some of the physical symptoms that he was describing with the tingling and the numbness and the accelerated breathing or the rapid heart rate, jittery, those things are all, they're physical manifestations of anxiety.
Right.
And then depression kind of feels more overwhelming and heavy. And and so it has more of a just different physical sensations that if we can be aware of what we're feeling and what we're thinking, can really help us to address the cause, the root, as Andrew was saying before. So depression, it was interesting. We both kind of had the same thought, like with depression being related more to things in the past, and anxiety being more like fear of the future. And the practice of mindfulness is to help us engage with ourselves in the now, in the here and the now, in the present. And there's some really simple exercises, a lot of really great resources out there if you just look up mindfulness exercise.
Right.
In fact, Dr. Greg Bottaro has a book called Catholic Mindfulness, and it really goes into that in great detail. And there's a whole website on that as well. So there are a lot of really great resources. But one thing that I wanted to do today is just a quick exercise with you so that you can feel those results in like 2 minutes. So we're going to begin by bringing your attention into your body. So right now you might be a little distracted by seeing everybody out there. If you are comfortable closing your eyes, go ahead and close your eyes. You can notice your body is seated in whatever chair. You might have a wooden armrest, no armrest, cloth. You can feel the weight of your body on the chair, and your feet or legs on the back of the chair, feet on the floor. Now, if you're driving, don't do this, but go ahead and take a few deep breaths. Inhale slowly and exhale slowly. Breathe in through the nose. And out through the mouth. Keep breathing. And as you take a deep breath, bring in more oxygen to wake up your body. As you exhale, have a sense of relaxing more deeply. You can notice your feet on the floor. Notice the sensations of your feet touching the floor. Maybe wood, carpet fiber, socks. You can feel the weight and pressure, vibrations, heat, maybe some tingling. Then notice your legs against the chair. Heaviness or lightness. Pulsing. Pressure. Is there something on your lap? Notice your back against the chair. Let your back sink into the chair. Do you feel tension? Can you let it go? Bring your attention into your stomach area. If your stomach is tense or tight, let it soften. Take another deep breath. Bring your attention to your hands. Are your hands tense or tight? See if you can allow them to soften, to relax, to let go. Notice your arms. Do you feel any sensation in your arms? Let your shoulders be soft. And let that relaxation go down from your shoulders into the rest of your arm. Moving up to your neck and throat. Let them relax too. How often do you think about your jaw and the tension you carry there? Soften your jaw. Let your face and facial muscles be soft. Relax. Now notice your whole body present. Take another breath. Be aware of your whole body and its connections as best as you can. And take another deep breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thank you. I feel like I'm going to sleep now. No, but that's just one thing. And it didn't even take that long. It took maybe
doesn't take
2-3
long.
minutes.
Yeah,
And
doesn't.
it's a great meditative exercise to connect yourself to your body and recognize all those pieces that could carry some stress and to recognize and then release that stress.
Absolutely.
So that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Deb.
Absolutely.
And you find the medium that works for you. Music can be helpful, it can be relaxing. Visualizing positive, atmosphere, using a vision board, things like that. Meditation, using to relax the mind, the body, recognize our stress. When we use meditation, we can look through things that stress us out and explore those feelings without judgment. It's very important to not blame ourselves for feeling stress. It's very easy to get in. I shouldn't be stressed out about this. I just need to deal with it. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with. I can show the coping wheel, the coping skills wheel again. Yes, I'll put it on at the end, Margaret. But exploring negative feelings without judgment, coping can be. It's something that you need to do, in order to practice that self-compassion, that self-care. Again, self-care is self-compassion, just as self-care is taking care of yourself.
Yeah, without judgment, that's a huge, huge thing.
Changing the perspective, changing up our thinking, trying to replace those negative thoughts, going down the rabbit hole with the positive thoughts, positive visualizations, meditation, during journaling. Journaling can be, I feel like there's something very powerful about putting a feeling in writing, putting a thought in writing. It makes it concrete. It makes it a real thing. And then with a real thing, we can move it and change it in ways. We can navigate with it in certain ways. A journal can really help with navigating complicated feelings and thoughts, how we deal with our feelings and thoughts, what we can control, what we can't control, addressing what we can control, and then for what we can't control, trying to find ways that we can de-stress our lives by finding unnecessary stress, things that we can't stress about because we can't control them, and removing those things if we can from our stress. And then, as I said in the beginning, self-care is a priority. Make it a priority in your life and practice self-care every day. What can you do to create a plan of self-care? Using the wheel, using mindfulness skills, using what Deb showed or similar exercises, things like that. Okay, hold on now. There we go.
One of the ways that we practice self-care is in our relationships with others. And like Andrew was saying, with being able to write out feelings and thoughts in a journal and see it. There's something about taking those abstract things and putting it to something concrete that helps us be able to address it and accept it or deal with it in a different way. A lot of the stresses that we don't even recognize within ourselves, we can much more easily see in our relationships. Back when I first started school for counseling, one of my professors said, what you will be working with more than anything else, and what you're almost really treating, is relationships, because it's how all of the issues that we are struggling through and working through and journeying through affect our relationships and those we love. We all have this innate desire for connection, that longing to love and to also reciprocally be loved. And so one of the challenges right now in 2021 is that our normal social supports are not what they are, because we are, instead of meeting at a round table and, having a glass of wine and cheese and, just having that fellowship and fun and experiencing everything in the same space, we're doing this virtually. And so acknowledging the good and the value of being able to do what we can and find joy in it and find that connection instead of bemoaning the fact that we can't be physically present. So taking advantage of those many resources that are available and that are out there. Who are the supportive people and the communities in your life? Some that come to mind offhand, here we are right now. We have St. Monica, we have this new group that Gail and Anne are spearheading, and it's absolutely fantastic, really exciting, because they saw a need and were willing to step up and meet that. And that's how a lot of social constructs are created. So that's something that, we can all do, is look around and see what the needs are around us. Who needs a friend? Who needs somebody to reach out to them? Who needs a phone call? I was able to connect with college friends from 25 years ago because of COVID, because I had the time. And so there are like really great opportunities to reconnect with special relationships or to build new ones. So do you have a plan or kind of maybe a ritual, a healthy ritual of connection? And how does connection factor into your life on a daily basis? The people you call or connect with on a daily basis or weekly, whether it's family, children, spouse, parents, siblings, friends, aunts and uncles, and just offering empathy for others. And I love that Andrew put this in the slide, empathy for ourselves. It's a lot easier to be generous to other people. It really is. We're just, we at least it is for me. But I see heads nodding as well. It's so much easier to be generous with other people, but also to have that compassion and empathy for ourselves, as Andrew is going to be talking about a little bit later, and what that looks like. Relationships can, and you really said this well before, Andrew, they can be really great, and they can be part of our support, and they can also be part of our stress. There are many parents with kids in school right now who are, going back and forth between virtual and in person, and the schedules have changed a lot over the course of a year. So there's not a lot of consistency and normalcy. And so there's challenges navigating all of that. And there's just looking at how we can grow in resiliency in our relationships is important during a time where there is a lot of change, and that's pretty much the only constant. It's like, okay, here we go again. What's new? It's kind of the question, instead of how's it going. It's like, what's new? There's just a constant change. Healthy boundaries, though, really do, as part of self-care, communicate respect for ourselves and love and respect for others. Because in setting healthy boundaries, we show that, yes, I respect myself, but I also respect you in requiring you to respect me. And in turn, I respect you So there's, healthy boundaries. I used to think that healthy boundaries, that really boundaries in and of themselves were selfish. Like I just had to give. Mom of four, just like parents are constantly giving. But in recognizing the need for sleep, self-care, that even as a mom, physical resources are not endless. There is a limit to them. Emotional resources are not endless. You do have to stop and say, okay, I do need to take care of myself in order to be able to take care of others. It's kind of like the airplane, putting on your own air mask before going and helping those who need help. So that is very important. And Andrew's going to talk a little bit more now about what self-compassion looks like and how important that is also as an aspect of self-care.
Yes, definitely. I mean, one of the things when you're talking about boundaries, I also think about an aspect of self-care where we not only have relationships with people, but boundaries can be put up with other things as well. Boundaries with media. I'm thinking about a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Things about putting up boundaries, the type of media that we're taking in, whether it's
The time,
news,
right?
How much time are we spending doing that? That can be a
Yeah.
important part of self-care.
Yeah.
Monitoring that, being mindful of that.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about and sort of lead off with this idea that, you can do it. That's why I have the picture up. All of us are a resource. We are a resource to deal with our own stress, to cope with our own stress, to cope with depression, to cope with anxiety. We have strengths and we can use those strengths. Think about the experiences you've had in the past, the adversity you've dealt with in the past, and how you were able to overcome it.
Mm.
And if you weren't able to overcome it, what would you have done? What choices differently would you make? That exploration can really help motivate and to explore alternative solutions, future solutions to deal with future stress, current stress, etc. And I like to call the second point here Andrew's golden rule. It's an attachment to the original golden rule, which is treat others like you'd like to be treated. But my golden rule is a little attachment that says treat yourself like you would like to be treated. You deserve the same kindness that you give to other people. You deserve to give that same kindness to yourself. How would you speak to a friend that was dealing with the same issue, the same stress, the same problem? How would you speak to that friend if they were you? Would you speak to them in a kind way, a gentle way? Show yourself the same kindness you're willing to show others. Use affirmations based on those strengths. Build off of those strengths. Those strengths are there. Be mindful of them. Recognize them. Feel good about them. You could do it. Need a Nike thing. And then visualize positive outcomes. Again, that goes back to that positive thinking, always in the negative. Visualize things happening that could be good, and you can use a vision board. Journaling is another resource for that. But yeah, and that's sort of where I wanted to end it. I know that we ran into 8 o'clock, but I wanted to thank everyone for coming with us. If there is anything that you would like to comment or leave into the discussion in the box, thank you so much. I see a lot of people saying thank you for joining us. Must log off. Thank you very much. Good night to those that have to leave. But thank you everyone for joining us. I know that me and Deb were very excited to give this presentation. I hope that you were able to get something beneficial for it. If anyone has any comments they'd like to say, share or visualize, that's wonderful. And I will put up that coping wheel because I know someone asked about that. And I can also give a link to where you could find that.
Yeah, that would be helpful, Andrew, if you want to go ahead and do that.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that would be great. If you send it to me, I can even send it out once I have the recording uploaded to YouTube. Okay. They can go out together.
1 second, because I can find the nice place I have it, which has a bunch of the coping skills that we talked about today.
Andrew, here's just a quick question while you're looking. What is instrumental aid on the coping wheel?
Give me 1 second so
Sure.
I can find it, and then I'll see what category it's under, and maybe I can give a better interpretation of what they're trying to say. All right, so I'm going to post this in the comment section. Where is Zoom? Here it is.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yes, of course.
Meg, you mentioned Mel Robbins She is a really wonderful, wonderful author. And one of her 54321 go is a strategy that I like to use with clients because it really does help to move from a transition out of the head into action. Another one that you all might like is Brene Brown. Really wonderful, especially helping to deal with shame and courage. So I recommend Brene Brown to a lot of my clients. And she has a great podcast now, a couple, very accessible.
To answer your question, Anne, instrumental aid was under the section of support, of getting social support. And what it speaks to is getting aid on a problem directly from another person. So there's comfort seeking. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Gail. I thought that was Anne's
No worries.
question.
No worries. That's fine.
I'm
You
sorry.
answered the question anyway. All good. All good.
Any other questions?
Yes, if there's a yes.
Or comments?
My comment would be, we're positively, absolutely fantastic, both of you. And my hat is off to you both. You did a fabulous job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really
And
well
thank
done.
you everyone for joining us and listening. You know, I know me and Deb worked hard on this, so we're very happy to share it. And I'm very, very proud of the work that we're doing at Daemion. And I'm really, you know, excited about doing things like this. So I'm very happy. We got such a great turnout. It was wonderful.
And
So
to
thank you for the
establish,
opportunity.
that the relationship with Daemion and Monica, St. Monica as well, really exciting. Father's Lock.
Yes.
Welcome to the party.
It's been a great party and a really great conversation.
Thank
It
you.
really has been. Are you driving, Father? You can't give us your blessing while you're driving, right? You can't multitask.
I'm in the parking lot at McDonald's.
Okay.
I'm using it's a coping mechanism.
Healthy or unhealthy?
Yes. Think of the mindfulness. Is it a healthy coping mechanism?
In terms of the body, maybe not as much. In terms of the psyche, it's excellent.
Okay. Well, maybe a little, every once in a while, a treat is okay, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If I can make one comment, Andrew, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I was listening to a podcast the other day of a couple of very prominent pastors, mega churches, and they were looking at a study from the Barna Group, who looks at nonprofits and religious organizations. And Barna found that 50% of pastors right now are really struggling with self-care. Well,
I could believe it.
They thought the number would be higher. They thought it would be 80, so they were going, here's 50. But here's an interesting, when they double clicked on it, the number one reason why pastors said that they're struggling with self-care is they don't have enough time to do self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And Barna wants to look into that deeper because they found that statistic even more alarming.
Mm.
So to Gail, Andrew, and to Fran, Deb, you. I just think this was magnificent. It was so helpful, and I'm very grateful. And I'm sure I speak to everybody else. We're so grateful for putting this thing together for us tonight.
Kudos to you both. I couldn't have said it better, Father.
It strikes me that, you know, I think about the caregivers and sort of like, you know, who takes care of the caregivers, right?
Yeah.
Pastors, mental health workers, you know,
Mhm.
the managers, people looking out for other people. We're often putting self-care on the back burner so we can get other people to self-care.
Mhm.
And it's so important for us to make that time. And it's hard to find that time, you know. I know one of the things that Daemion has is this you know, the group that we were talking about earlier, the name
Healing the
escapes me.
helping professional.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Something like that. You know, it
Yeah.
makes you make the time. And those things can be very beneficial for something like that. But it's a struggle. It's real. The struggle is real.
Fran, is there anything you wanted to add? She's muted. Let me see if I can unmute her.
I think she unmuted herself and then you muted her.
Yeah, I think you
I'm
muted
muted.
Fran.
Let's see. Can I unmute her?
I don't know.
I just asked her to unmute.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah.
There
Oh,
you
there
go.
she is. There she is.
Okay, what I was going to say, just the caregivers, for a vessel to be able to pour out, something has to be poured in.
Mhm.
So hopefully all the caregivers, the pastors and so on, will have opportunities to be filled so that they can continue to give out. And thank you all. Yep,
Thank you.
yeah.
Great thought.
All right.
Perfect ending thought.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. That's all we got.
That was quite enough. You were both marvelous. Again, thank you so very much for your efforts, your time, your presentation, which was marvelous. Thank you so much. On behalf of St. Monica's and those who are here tonight, you were amazing, and we really, really appreciate your words of wisdom. Thank you.
We
Thank you.
appreciated the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Good night
Bye,
now.
everyone. Good night.